Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the INTOCHANGE Podcast. On today's episode, I speak with Cooper Chapman. For those of you that don't know Cooper's story, once upon a time he was a pro surfer but then turned massive mental health advocate after losing a few friends to suicide when he was younger. He now runs the Good Human Factory, which is something he uses to bring awareness to mental health through the seminars and workshops which he runs Australia-wide. See, I think what he's doing is amazing because most of the time mental health is swept under the rug and pushed to the side. But the fact of the matter is that mental health actually causes more fatalities daily than anything else, including car crashes. So tune in, have a listen to what he has to say because it's a great message. And if you don't already, go over and give the Good Human Factory a follow. It's well worth it. I'll see you on the episode. Now, me and Cooper actually met for the first time on a charity ride day. It's for a friend of ours, Gavin, who was a freestyle motocross rider. Trying to raise awareness for riding safely through the freestyle motocross parks. And at the time, I didn't actually have any idea that Cooper was on such, a aligned journey with my own, where he's trying to help other people with mental health and, trying to bring awareness to, what we're really capable of. So, Cooper, can you tell me a little bit more about where the Good Human Project, or Good Human Factory, came from?
Oh, it's a pretty good story, actually. So my family had some sort of mental health history, like mental illness history. I lost an uncle when I was young to suicide. My dad struggled quite a bit throughout my teen years. And I was always very forward thinking, what can I do for my own mental health? Being a professional surfer, I was lucky enough to work with some great coaches and learn a bunch of these skills that were super beneficial for not only my athlete career, but also my overall well-being. And I realized I never got taught any of this stuff at school. Never had a passion or an idea to start a business in mental health at all. But then my younger sister came home one day, we're sitting around the dinner table, and I have three sisters, and my youngest one was in her last year of high school, and she came home, mum and dad sitting around the dinner table, all of us as a family, and she said one of her friends took his life yesterday, which is always pretty hard to hear as a young person, knowing there's the other young people in your community taking their life. And as we kind of all do, posted an Instagram story or whatever, and life went on. And 2 weeks later, we came home, exact same situation, another friend had taken his life. And that was the moment where I was like, you know what, I'm traveling the world as a pro surfer at this time, living the most amazing life, super privileged. And I was like, what am I doing to help these young people? Maybe I could go and talk to some of them at schools and share my story, because I know there's some of these skills that I definitely didn't learn at school. And maybe a young pro surfer could maybe get through to some of these kids. So it just started as this pure passion to share my story, to maybe help some kids learn some skills that they don't learn at school around mental well-being. Over the last 2 years, it's evolved, or 3 years now, it's kind of evolved into the little beast that it is, from workshops to podcasts to merchandise to communities and ambassadors. And it's turned into this awesome little community of people just trying to change the world a little bit when it comes to mental health. And the tagline I've really come up with, and I told you this before we jumped on air, was connecting curious minds with simple mental health strategies. And I think that's what I'm really trying to do.
So what was it about, that tagline that resonated with you and that resonates with all the people that you talk to and work with?
I only came up with that tagline recently, actually. The tagline has been "Be kind to your mind" for a very long time.
I think I might have actually seen that,
we've got shirts that say that on it. I've got a trademark on "Be kind to your mind" on merchandise here in Australia. But then I kind of started calling it a little bit around making mental health cool, was for a while the tagline. We have all these really cool young professional athletes in a range of different extreme sports. So I thought that kind of really made sense. But I also didn't want to, it doesn't have to be cool mental health. So what I really wanted to sidestep a little bit towards was just connecting curious minds, people who are willing to help themselves, people who are willing to look a bit outside the box and open to learning new things and learning new modalities to take care of their mental health, but also have the responsibility and take accountability to actually put it into action. So that's what the Good Human Factory is all about, trying to inspire people to connect curious minds with simple mental health strategies. I read a book recently called what's it called? I can't think of what it's called. It's by this guy Donald Miller. Okay. It's called Building a Story Brand. Sorry.
Another guy. Yeah. I've done a bit of work for his. Yeah.
Yeah. When we were talking downstairs, you're saying you're rebranding. I was like, I've got two great books for you. One is that book, Donald Miller, Building a Story Brand. Another one is Start With Why, Simon Sinek. I'm sure you've heard of both of them.
Will Martin, actually. So Meg's partner, Meg's a good friend of both of ours. He actually recommended that to me, and it was Finding Your Why and Start With Why.
Yeah.
Yeah, great books.
Yeah. So I read Donald Miller's Building a Story Brand recently, and it's all about the business is never the hero of the story. It's always the customer. And I was like, true. And it's like, you just got to come up with a very simple, concise, something that you can tell people that encapsulates your whole business in one sentence. And I truly think just connecting curious minds with simple mental health strategies is what the Good Human Factory is all about, whether it be through my workshops, which I run with corporates or high school students, whether it be through my podcast where I do multiple episodes a week, both individual and also guest episodes, whether it be my merchandise with really simple messaging, which can, inspire people to think a little differently, 1% community, and also ambassadors. So there's kind of 5 pillars of the work that I do, and all of them, hopefully are connecting curious minds with simple mental health strategies.
Cool. Now, you said that obviously your customers are the heroes, right? So generally, the Good Human Factory, who is their ideal customer? Who is someone that you'd work with, or what are the kind of people that you generally work with?
Oh, it really depends. Like I said, I have such a range of sort of things that I do with the Good Human Factory. I think for the workshops, I mean, anyone's a customer, really. It's anyone who's ready to just think a bit differently about mental health. The media and everything we drill into people nowadays really comes from the mental illness side of the spectrum. It's all about depression, anxiety, suicide, spotting the signs. And there's so many awesome organizations out there who are really helping that 20% of us who do have a mental illness here in Australia. But the angle that I really want to take, not being a psychologist, I'm very open and clear with the fact that I'm just out there trying to share stories and connect people with these strategies through other experts, whether it be through my podcast, speaking to leading neuroscientists, speaking to sleep experts, speaking to a lot of doctors and experts in their field, or just talking to other people who have been through a journey and learned some things along the way that have really benefited their life. So I guess my audience is just anyone who's willing to make some personal changes and willing to seek out some new ways to think and new ways to act in the world. So whether it be through my merchandise, a lot of the merch does really well. It says, what are you grateful for on the back? And the amount of messages I get from people that, somebody stopped me in the street and told me what they were grateful for. Like those little ripples that you can make such a positive impact. So I guess anyone's really an audience who is willing to have a bit of an open mind when it comes to mental health.
Now, if we think about, I guess, mental health, I guess the old model of treating mental health would be go to a psychologist, take the pills, rather than actually doing what you're doing now, which is sharing stories and actually creating a platform where people feel like they belong. So obviously you've been through a bit of stuff with that yourself. When it comes to going to a psychologist and things like that, I feel like it's very, very like textbook sort of orientated. Yeah. So where was it for you that you were like, you know what, this model's broken. I want to try and create this platform to help people, but from, I guess, real life experience and share other people's stories as opposed to just, go and get help?
Yeah, after I kind of started the Good Human Factory and once my sister lost that second friend, I did a bit of research into the statistics and I was just like, it's so bad, but like, why is it bad? What are we doing? What are we getting taught at school to manage this? It's like the solution generally, like you said, is go and see the psychologist. They give you SSRIs. Bang, you're locked into the system forever. And I just questioned that. I knew that it just intuitively didn't feel right for me. Right. So I began to read a lot of books and do my own research. I read a great book called Lost Connections by a guy called Johan Hari. And that book basically goes on to challenge the system that we're all living in and shows that depression and anxiety and a lot of these things that come up in people's lives is quite often because many different aspects of their life are out of whack. And he goes on to talk a lot about the connections that we have with people, the understanding we have with the environment we're in, and goes on to show where like SSRIs came from in the 50s. And I'm going to get this probably wrong, but the gist, the way that I understood it was he basically goes on to talk about the fact that in the 50s, they were like, serotonin, low serotonin levels seems to be pretty common in somebody who's depressed. So we'll make these pills that pump that back up. And then now there's a lot of great data and studies that show that that isn't really the case, but they've been making billions of dollars a year for the last 60 years on this stuff.
Right. Yeah.
When now there's a great study that came out recently in the University of South Australia that shows that exercise is 1.5 times more effective on depression than pharmaceuticals and also counseling. So I kind of started to think a bit differently about that. It just didn't intuitively feel right that humans have been biologically evolving on this earth for thousands and thousands of years. And just for the last 50 years, it's like, we've got the chemicals wrong for a lot of people. Here, we've created this in a laboratory and now this person's going to make money by giving you this pill. I was like, surely there's enough without having to go to that solution that I can solve first. So for me, I've never been on SSRIs. I've never really had to go and see a psychologist. And I truly think it's because I've been quite open-minded from a young age to, when I'm struggling, look for a new modality that might work. So things like breath work I've been doing for years, things like meditation, things like gratitude, things like exercise, things like eating healthily, looking after your sleep, having good relationships with people that can keep you accountable when you are not sort of living up to your values. These were all things that I very luckily learned from quite a young age because of an unlikely moment. And I put this down to why my life has gone the direction. As a young surfer, I used to base my whole self-worth and identity. It was Cooper Chapman, the pro surfer. And when I was a junior and I was successful, this was great. I was kind of hitting these spikes of well-being pretty often, like this roller coaster of life we live. We kind of hit the highs when we're doing well. We achieve the goals that we set out. And as an athlete, they were coming pretty frequently for me as a junior. I then progressed into the international tour and things got a little bit tougher. I kind of went from the high school student who would do really well at high school to the big wide world. And my results started to decline. I was sort of in the middle of the pack between 50 and 100 in the world once I got to the international tour. And because my identity was so tied up in my surfing, I really started to struggle. And then I spoke to my sports psychologist and kind of told him how I was feeling. I was a bit lost. I wasn't winning anymore. And he said, mate, don't worry. It's so common to feel the way you do. So many of us base our self-worth, our identity in like a career. Like for you, as Cooper Chapman, the pro surfer, the locals at your beach would say, well done, mate. Your sponsors would be saying, well done, mate. Your best friends, your family were congratulating you when you did well. But then when you don't do well, that all disappears. And I really started to get affected by that. And my sports psych said to me, I want you to stop basing your self-worth and identity on your career and your achievements. And I want you to start basing it on how well you live to your values. And that was this big light bulb moment for me. He was like, what are your values? How well are you living to them? And I was like, whoa, I don't really know really what my values are. Maybe like kindness, respect, honesty. And he's like, yeah, but how well are you living to them? And that kind of made me reflect and build a bit of self-awareness on, yeah, how well am I living to values? And throughout my 20s, I really began to try and find what those values were. And a lot of those values ended up being attached with great modalities, like mindfulness as a value was attached with meditation, and kindness as a value attached with gratitude, and all these little exercises that we can do. And I found, hey, if I'm living to these values daily, this brings my baseline well-being up. I don't need SSRIs. I don't need to win surfing competitions. I just need to get clear on what these values are and start to try and live by them strongly. And yeah, that's now what I really try and lean into and encourage other people to do too.
I love that, man. That was a really, I guess, hit the nail on the head way of putting that. That's really well said, man. So what you said, I think, and what I took from what you said is that you used to be attached to this external validation, right? So winning the pro surfing tournaments, you felt good, but when you didn't, you weren't getting those attaboys. You sort of were on that downward trend, right? Obviously, those troughs and the bottoms, yeah.
Absolutely.
So for someone that might be out there struggling with a similar thing, whether it be looking for that external gratification or external validation through drugs, alcohol, through their wins, through I guess their achievements, to then be able to I guess start to love themselves for who they actually are and not what they're actually doing, what would be a piece of advice that you'd give them?
Oh, I think just having a good look at yourself. Are you in a victim mindset or a hero mindset? Are you blaming other people for your downfalls? Like there's quite common similarities in people who are in that mindset and people who feel a bit lost, a bit like they're not living up to where they want to be in life. And then, yeah, just try and look through your life through a hero mindset. It's like, what can I do to make my life better? What are the things that I'm getting up for myself every single day? And then trying to go after it. And I think as well, we kind of get sold this big lie. We live in this world where we get marketed thousands of times a day. Like there's no secret that we're getting marketed literally every time we look at our phone, every time we drive past a billboard, every TV, every time we walk through any public space, we get marketed. And the marketing is when you buy this, then you'll be happy. When you go on this holiday, then you'll be happy. And once you start to at least be aware of that, that was one of the biggest steps for me going, oh, wait a second. All these other people are telling me I'm insignificant without their product. And I began to realize and just question it and be like, no, I should be able to be happy without needing to buy some product. And I learned that in a pretty cool way. I was in Japan for a surf comp when I was a bit younger and I just lost in the first round of an event. And I was like, oh, this sucks. Me and my three mates all lost in the first round. And we're like, what are we going to do to make ourselves feel better? And kind of the Western world mindset, we're like, let's go to Tokyo. We'll go buy ourselves some stuff. That'll make us feel good. So we go to Tokyo, get the train there, buy ourselves a bunch of junk we don't really need, and we're feeling a bit better. And we get back to where we're staying that night and we're having sushi at this restaurant. The guy making us sushi is kind of sitting right next to where I am. And he said, how's your day? And I was like, oh, it was all right. We kind of lost in the comp that we came over here for, but then we went and bought ourselves stuff. We're feeling a bit better, and that was right when I'm struggling with my identity in my early 20s.
Yeah.
And he said something that stuck with me. He said, "Oh, you guys have got it all wrong." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Oh, you guys in the Western world say when you're having a bad day, go and buy yourself something nice. That'll make you feel good." And I was like, "Yeah, retail therapy." And he said, "What we say here in the my culture and my family is when you're having a bad day, don't go and buy yourself something nice. Go and do something nice for somebody else. That'll make you feel good."
Yeah.
So I started to really try and look at these other different ways rather than the capitalistic way that we kind of get told everywhere, and started to go, well, no, what terms do I want to live on? Do I want to be happy when I'm nice to people? I want to be happy when I buy something. And just trying to really flip those morals and values in your mindset and go, oh, by helping others, that can make me feel good. By practicing gratitude every day, that can make me feel good. By being mindful each day and knowing that I live to those values, that can make me feel good, rather than, like you said, the external validation. Right. So it's just getting really strong with those values, and it takes time. It's taken me years, and mine are revolving, and I stuff up on them every single day. But it's that balance of being kind to yourself, but also being self-disciplined.
I think this is something that I guess we want to really point a finger at here, because this is what we're conditioned with in the Western world, like you said, okay? Buy this, it's going to make you feel good. Take this pill, it's going to make you feel better. It's all trying to give you something that you haven't got already,
exactly.
Right? It's telling you you're not enough without our products. So I think that this is a really, really good thing to sort of bring into focus, yeah, is that we are enough, yeah? And that's, I guess, what, from my understanding, the Good Human Factory is all about, yeah? So over the last few years, you've developed this. So 2-3 years that you've had the Good Human Factory running?
Pretty much when COVID hit in 2020, in like, I think the business, I registered the business name and stuff in like May, June 2020. So,
hey, hello. Sorry to interrupt your podcast, guys, but I just wanted to quickly chat about the must-have personal development tool of 2023, and it's called the Happier, Healthier You Journal. Now, I want to go back to about 6 years ago when I started my journey of personal development. There was plenty of gurus and lots of information, but so much that it became confusing. So I came up with the Happier, Healthier You Journal. From the very beginning, the journal will allow you to go really deep and figure out exactly where you're at. It'll then help you set goals around where you'd like to be. And from there, the journal becomes the tool to help you to bridge the gap. So, whether you're fresh to the world of personal development or you've been growing for years, the Happier, Healthier You Journal is the must-have personal development tool of 2023. So to get yours, don't forget to click the link below in the bio to go to my Shopify store. And if you'd like 10% off, don't forget to use the code INTOCHANGE10 at checkout. Cheers, guys. Now back to your episode.
Almost coming on 3 years now.
Okay. So in the last 3 years, how has that business then, how has the Good Human Factory, I won't even call it a business, how has the Good Human Factory transformed from where it started to where it is now? And what are the plans for it in the near future?
Oh, it's been a bit of a roller coaster, because to be honest, I come from like no business background. I feel like I'm a curious thinker. I have some great people around me who have given me some help and direction and advice along the way. But I, up until the last few months, haven't really had anyone put in more than an hour or two once every now and then to help me out, which I'm not, it's been cool trying to do it all myself, but there's been,
right?
I mean, if you told me how much work was going to go into it a few years ago, it's kind of, I've just known that the work that I'm doing is helping people from the very get-go. Everyone was telling me that the stuff that I was putting out was helping. So I've just been like, I know my compass is heading in the right direction, just keep moving forward, and things have grown. So at the start, like 2020, it was all about, all right, let's create this workshop that's really good. Once these 2 months of COVID lockdowns are done, I'll be going to schools, game on. Obviously, we know 2020 ended up being a bit of a shit show, so we couldn't really, so I couldn't go into schools, which gave me the opportunity to try and pivot and build this foundation of the business or the social enterprise that is sustainable when stuff like this happens. So I built the workshop. I also started, I think back then I just started like becoming good friends with a bunch of these extreme sport athletes, because I moved up north from Sydney. So I started the ambassadors as like a little thing just to like start sharing their stories. The podcast launched in May 2020. It was different than it is now. So I was with Podcast 1 for 20 episodes, and it was like fortnightly, and the numbers just were like really stagnant at really low. Had some great guests and some amazing conversations, but they just weren't in a place to help me grow it.
This was your hosting that you were using for the podcast, correct?
So Podcast 1, which is now Listener.
Okay, yeah.
So I was with them for my first 20 episodes. They had a producer for me. They had an editor. I'd record the episode, send it to him, bang. I'd get the episode, they'd upload and do it all, which was great, but it just wasn't growing. I decided I took it back over after about a year. We only put out 20 episodes. Or it might have been even 18 months. Yeah, 18 months we put out 20 episodes. There just wasn't that much. To be honest, it was me. I wasn't probably like on the ball enough, and then they just weren't able to facilitate more than a week episode each fortnight. And I was like, to grow, I need to be more consistent. So I left them. They were really cool about it. They helped me so much establish myself. And then since I took it off, it's like almost 2x each month.
Hey guys, sorry to interrupt again, but if you're enjoying the podcast so far, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it to your friends. Remember, support is what keeps us going. So show yours and I'll appreciate it. Thank you so much, and back to the ep.
Which has been cool to know that my own sort of input has been the thing that's grown it. So yeah, that was like end of 2020. So 21 was the year where I started to do bits and pieces more. I still wouldn't even really call it full time. I'm still competing and surfing full time
in 2021.
In 2021,
yep.
Had events to start the year. Got into the world, the second level of our tour. It's called the qualifying series.
Okay.
So end of 2021, I went to America, Portugal, France, and Hawaii. Or America, LA, Portugal, France, Hawaii, for like 3 months, which when you're the only person doing anything for your business. But that was when COVID got really bad again. So I had to like pull the handbrake and everything kind of stopped. Wasn't doing podcasts while I was over there. Yeah. Some friends were helping send the merch. I kind of launched the merch in early 2021. So I had some friends kind of keeping that moving. Obviously my workshops were pretty stagnant and slow through 2020, 21 because everything's closed. Whenever stuff opened, I'd get bits and pieces here and there, but it takes a bit to really build your credibility, which I learnt the long way because I thought people would be like, pro surfer, let's get him in. I thought the media would get behind me, but I've had one media story in the last 2 years about what I've done. And that was because I kind of went after it myself.
Yeah, you put yourself out there, right?
Yeah, you got to like go and search for your own media things. Anyway, so then 2022 came around. That's really when things started to take off a bit more. I'm still working. Started 2022 doing other stuff to keep myself afloat. And then like May came around and the podcast had started building because the start of 2022, I'd been doing it all myself. I had a neuroscientist on my podcast and decided to take a year off drinking because of the effects of alcohol on the brain she spoke about.
That was after a conversation you had with her?
Yeah,
okay.
On the podcast. And I just said live on the pod, I was like, you know what, I'm going to take a year off. I turned 28 in 2 weeks. I've drunk from 18 to 28, 10 years on, 1 year off. Seems pretty right in my mind. So said it on the podcast live, and yeah, I haven't had a drink since. So
congrats, man.
That
was a huge thing.
And since then, my business, to be honest, like I don't know if it was like the universe saying good on you, you're taking a good direction, but like that was in May, and then June I had like my biggest month yet of workshops, and then started to like snowball effect a little bit in the back half of 2022. Just the business took off, the podcast kept growing, got some sponsors on, workshops started growing, merch started growing, and then up until now, early 2023, everything's just sort of one foot in front of the other, like I said, trying to really define what my why is and just work out the next steps forward. I've looked at going kind of the expansion route of like going wider and bringing on other facilitators. But I also see a lot of my friends who have got successful businesses with like between 15 and 30 to 40 staff, and they all just look stressed and unhappy. And I'm like, is that really what I want for the kind of future of me to go that way? So I'm kind of working out right now how I can kind of just continue to increase the value of me personally, build a small team around me to help get me on bigger stages, to share my messaging, to continue to learn myself by having great conversations with far smarter than me people, learning what they've done and then trying stuff for myself and then spreading it with my audience. So the goal is to this year really grow the merch. I've got a massive drop of merch coming very shortly. I've got, which is really cool. I've got like 1,200 units or something, which
is that we're talking about the AS Colour boxes
before?
before?
I've got like 70 colours of AS Colour that I'm like dealing with that. This is the first time I've got designers actually helping me with creating the merch, making it look a bit cooler and making it look a bit more cut through with our messaging. So that's going to come very shortly. Probably when this episode's out, it might have just dropped early, mid-April, I think. I say but it's just I'm looking at I need to like work with some people to try and work out marketing and stuff for it. But yeah, the goal is just to continue to get on as many stages. A lot of high schools, like the last 18 months, I've spoken to over 25,000 students, which is pretty cool to know that just off my own bat from reaching out to school. Well, to be honest, it's been mostly schools reaching out to me. I'm not very good at marketing or selling myself, so I kind of just like wait for stuff to come to me.
But sounds like it's working out right for you so far.
It's done pretty good, and I just employed a girl to Alex. She's a legend. She's just started started helping me with my bookings and stuff. Like, it's her job to reach out to people because I don't really like that stuff. But it's been really,
doesn't it?
It does. But I mean, my feed, the imposter syndrome is massive. I'm like,
Massive,
I'm not a psychologist. Who am I to speak to these kids? But I also know you put 9 out of 10 psychologists in a room, and most kids are going to kind of like back away and not really want to be interested. So I do understand I do have a bit of a niche being a pro surfer, and all these cool ambassadors show a video of them. It's like, oh, maybe I am a bit more like these guys. Like, this is a bit cooler. So the feedback I've got has been incredible, that the messages I share really connect with people. So it's super humbling, but there's so much more work to do. I feel like I'm literally just scratching the surface. So
yeah, man. I think something you said that really stuck with me is obviously relatability. So with what you're doing as opposed to like a psychologist, like you have the opportunity to actually relate to these kids, because we all want those kids, right? When kids want someone to talk to, they don't want to talk to someone that's sitting there in an office with a book, writing down shit and then giving them, I guess, stuff that they've learned from a textbook. They want someone that's got experience that's relatable to them. So the pro surfing thing, I think, works perfectly for you, right?
Because we remember stories, like the story I just told about in Japan. I tell that story, and I just know it's a lot of the best things that I've learned that have really stuck with me, those little nuggets, come from somebody telling me a story.
Life
and picking something,
right?
Exactly, picking up out of someone's story. So it's just those small little shifts that somebody go, oh, you know what, I might start doing gratitude because I heard what Cooper told about it and the science behind it.
Rather than the chick there, it's like, you should write some stuff down that you're grateful for.
Exactly.
What's going to resonate more with the kid,
practical
right?
little skills and like make it a bit cooler. So it's it's been fun developing a program to try and connect and get feedback and alter it and learn new stuff and add to it. It's something so out of my wheelhouse. I feel confident now because it's just me sharing something I'm really passionate about, and I know that it works because of the data I've gathered.
Yeah.
But for a long time, there's a lot of nerves of like, who am I to be saying this to anyone?
Man, you said something there about imposter syndrome, and I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with, myself included. How do you go with getting over that? Because for me, when I've had imposter syndrome in the past, it's like that negative self-talk, like, you're not worthy of doing this. So how did you push past that to be like, no, you know what, fuck it, I actually am, and I'm doing this shit to where you are now?
Oh, it's been hard. Imposter syndrome is a funny one. There's like a few quotes that I try and listen back to, like that I say to myself. Like, one that's great is like, if not you, then who? It's
I like that.
If not you, then who else is going to get up here and do it? Like, if, like we said, the psychologist gets up and they don't connect. Like, I'm at the stage now where I'm lucky enough to have had so much great feedback that I know that a lot of the stuff I talk about is helping people. If somebody says, oh, I didn't get something out of it, like, that's okay. I know I'm just trying to do my absolute best. And if I get up on stage and botch a workshop one day or a keynote, like, that's okay. I know that my intentions are pure. I'm up here just trying to share my story, so maybe people can get something out of it to improve their life. So
even just like one little thing, right?
Exactly. Even if it's one little thing. And then the one of the things that really helped me with imposter syndrome was taking feedback. I didn't do it for my first 8 months of doing my workshops, and the imposter syndrome almost grew. But now I do like a little QR code on the back of a exercise we do that everyone has, that I get them to scan at the end and take a 1-minute survey just to let me know, like, did you feel better entering or leaving than you did entering the workshop? Did you learn something new about mental health? Will you use any of the skills you learnt moving forward? Would you recommend us to a friend? And then a little spot to give some feedback. And I think it's like 98% of people say they left the workshop feeling better than they entered. I think it's like 95% say they learned something new about mental health, and like 87% said they'll use the skills that they learnt moving forward. So it's like, knowing that it is connecting with the majority of people takes away the imposter syndrome a little bit, but there still is that, like, who am I? I'm not a psychologist, but it's like, if it's helping someone, then who cares really? I try and avoid sharing anything that's too heavy. Like I said, I'm trying to help that 80% that don't have a mental illness build skills that don't need a psychologist to teach, things like gratitude, things like mindfulness. And it's like, if you want to learn about this stuff more, I'm giving you the sort of conduit to go and find a bit more out about it yourself.
Yeah, cool, man. Now, something I do want to ask is, we were speaking earlier about the conference you spoke at last week, so Humankind. So right there, the camera's over there, but man, so something that you said that I guess I really thought about as well was, most of the speaking gigs you've done most of the speaking gigs you've spoken at were when people are almost not forced to be there, but they didn't have to pay entry or anything to be there, to then speaking at a conference where, and I remember you saying as well, you're like, oh, I was first, so I thought that they might start to fill up. But How cool was it, I guess, knowing that there was X amount of people there to see you and they were actually there to listen to you and they'd paid money to get in there. So how was that experience for you?
Yeah, it's cool. So there was this Humankind Summit down at Luna Park a few days before we were recording this episode. And it was epic. A good friend of mine, his name's John Winning. John Winning Jr., he owns Appliances Online and the Winning Group, massive businessman. He's only 37, but he's a really cool guy, and we became mates. I don't even know how I became lucky enough to be friends with him and his community. He's really brought me and my best mate Alex Hayes into their super elite community when it comes to tech and business, but also extreme sport, but also they're just good people. They're trying to raise the consciousness of humans. And he put on this event because Matt Mullenweg, who is the founder of WordPress, wanted to come to Australia to check it out. And he's like, would you speak to my staff? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, maybe could we put on an event and we'll do like a little one-nighter and you can speak there? And he's like, sweet. And then he called his friend Wim Hof, who most people probably who listen to this podcast would have heard of. My friend John Winning, he's friends with Wim, and he's like, Herman, his nickname's Herman. He's like, if you're going to do an event, I'll be there. So Wim Hof was going, and then like he got all these big music friends of his. So it turned into this like big event. He's like, wow, I'll get all these wellness and tech and business, and turned into this event where we're just going to try and raise the consciousness and talk about the future. And had Wim Hof, had like AI speakers, like NASA robot people, and he asked me to speak, which was really cool. He's like I said, he's a good supporter of the stuff that I do. So he asked myself and Alex Hayes to speak.
Yeah.
I was meant to speak on like the Friday, but then they changed me to, they're like, oh, can we move you to the first speaker on the Thursday, the first day of the event? We just needed to move you. And I was like, yeah, all right. I thought, sweet, no one's going to be there. I'll kind of warm the event up. The speaker after me was Dr. Charlie Teo, who's a world-leading neurosurgeon. He's very infamous. He's been banned from practicing in Australia because he's a guy that's willing to operate on things that other surgeons aren't. And then in Australia, there's so much legislation that they've banned his license, but he saves multiple lives from people all around the world. So One of the most incredible people ever was after me. So I was like, maybe a few will fill in while I speak. But unbeknownst to me, I walked in and there was a full room ready to see me speak. There was people bursting out the doors, which was really cool. I had a lot of my friends there, but also my family was the first time they got to see me speak. I feel like I've been preparing for it for basically 2 years. I've done the workshop that I present in an hour, and I had to squeeze it down to 30 minutes for this event, which was cool. So I felt super comfortable up on stage. It's something that I really enjoy doing now, which is getting up and speaking, because I know the impact it does have. And
of course,
yeah, knowing that people, I don't know if anyone paid to see me, but the ticket was a full day, and you got Wim Hof like about an hour after me and Dr. Teo straight after me as well. So just knowing that I was included in that list of people, and knowing that the impact that I can have can be included in that realm, was really cool. And I had a lot of people come up to me after. That's what the event was about. I walked around and watched everything else, and people came up and chatted to me about what I talked about. I had a lot of people on socials reach out. And a lot of people were tagging me on socials saying they learned a lot from me, Wim Hof, and Dr. Teo. And it's like, to be included in that list, man. and Mark Burris.
Wow.
It was special just to network and meet a lot of those people. And hopefully next year get invited back, which will be really fun.
And low-key jealous about meeting Wim Hof. I've actually always wanted to go over to Holland and do the course with him where he takes you out for a week. And
I think it's really hard to even get into that now.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I've heard.
I'm going to try and get over there too. It was really cool. So Herman, the guy through the event, who's a good friend of mine, he invited me to a dinner on the Wednesday before the event, and I got there and it was like Dr. Teo, Wim, a few of the other speakers that he'd flown in from all around the world. So we got to actually kind of hang out for the afternoon and have some food and get up and talk, and that was pretty cool. And then on the event, they did you could do ice baths with Wim. And they let me and my crew come in like half an hour early and catch up with him personally and do our ice baths and film some content. So
fuck yeah, dude.
It was cool to do that. And then my friend Herman's good friends with Wim, so I'm going to try and go over there and film some content one day. I think it'd be really cool.
Where he's from, yeah. That'd be cool.
That'd be sick.
How good, man. Now, you keep talking about these workshops, bro. I want to hear more about those. So these workshops that you run, what's the purpose behind them? Who are they for? Tell us more about, I guess, what you're doing with those.
Yeah, so the workshop is basically a 60-minute, I call it a keynote or an interactive keynote, I guess you'd call it. It's not just me speaking for the full 60 minutes. There's different exercises throughout. And basically what we've spoken about today is my workshop. So I share a bit about my story, why I started the Good Human Factory, a little bit about my ambassadors, talk about what happened with me with being a bit lost and not knowing what my values were, and then move on to sharing the 5 key values that I try and live by, and have different exercises to go with each, a few different stories that go with each, and obviously a bit of a presentation behind me that hopefully just opens people's minds. Like I said, the whole blueprint of the good human factor is just connecting curious minds. So I'd say predominantly of my clients are high schools. I speak of probably 70% of my workshops are with high school students. I personally think high school is a great demographic for the sort of stuff I teach, just exposing young people to these different ways of thinking about mental health. I also do a lot of stuff for corporates. I've spoken for like Apple, Telstra, McDonald's. And same thing, the workshop, I shift it just a little bit for the corporate context. It makes it a bit more relatable for corporates. But the feedback I've had between both have been phenomenal, and then obviously sporting clubs and stuff as well. Basically anyone has a group of people who they want to inspire to think about mental health a bit differently, I'd say is my target audience. But yeah, the 5 values I go on to talk about are: number 1, responsibility, the importance of owning our own stuff and that victim hero mindset. Number 2, I talk about gratitude, share some science behind gratitude, some stuff I've done with a neuroscientist on my podcast. Do a little gratitude exercise where I let people get into it a little bit. Then talk about empathy a bit, share some just stories about empathy, and then move into mindfulness. We do a little mindfulness exercise. I talk about the impact it's had on me and how it's changed my life. Some very simple strategies that you can add into your life that aren't these 20, 30-minute things a day. It's all about just giving 1% of your day to your mental health, and then going to talk about kindness, which I think is something that we don't understand and get taught, that kindness is one of the most amazing things we can do for our own mental health, is being kind to others, being kind to ourselves, and being kind to the environment. So just bringing all of that into hopefully an inspiring and engaging 60-minute workshop that can leave people feeling a bit curious about mental health, but also like they've got some strategies that are really tangible and simple to add into their life. But yeah, like I said, I've spoken to close to 25,000 students, over 5,000 corporates over the last 2 years. And yeah, hopefully it continues to grow because I'm super passionate about the stuff I talk about. It's really been getting great feedback. And yeah, like I said, I think it's just the beginning of where I can take it.
I love that, man. That's so cool. Now, you spoke about mindfulness and obviously how, it doesn't have to be this 20 or 30-minute thing, right? And I think that a lot of people get lost in the process of meditation, breath work, all that sort of stuff. So for someone that has never really done that sort of stuff before, and they might say that they haven't got the time to be mindful or to be kind or to be grateful, what would be some piece of advice or some things that people at home could start doing straight away?
I mean, I don't think mindfulness and meditation are the same thing. For me, mindfulness is just the ability to be present.
Right.
Meditation is an incredible way to start building your mindfulness as a value.
Yeah.
But mindfulness doesn't have to be sitting down for 20 minutes a day doing a meditation. I highly encourage you to do that. But mindfulness can just be when you're eating, actually tasting the flavors, focusing on your senses. When you're going for a walk, not having your phone in your hand, like looking around, oh, look at all the different colors that I can actually see with these things in my face called eyes that connect to my brain. Like, it's quite amazing. I think mindfulness is just about self-awareness, like actually sitting with how you're feeling rather than trying to continually distract ourselves.
Right.
And there's moments to do that in every single thing we do every single day. Like, how present are you with your breath? How present are you with when you're talking to someone? Are you looking in their eyes? Are you actually listening, or are you just waiting for your chance to talk? Like, there's all these different elements of mindfulness that we can add into every aspect of our life. It just comes back to that self-awareness and consciousness. And I suck at it all the time. I'm like always working on it, but it just comes back to being aware of it and being open to somebody calling you out on it. Like, my partner called me out on it a few months ago. She was like, and she's great. She was like, I just want to let you know, like, instead of getting angry at me going, you're always on your phone, you're not focusing on me. Like, I do a lot of work on my phone, but it's not an excuse. And she said, I just need you to be a bit more present. Like, don't check your phone in between going from your car to inside. Like, all these little things that she just called me out on. And instead of being like, no, it's for work, I was like, you know what, you're right. Like, I'm letting these things distract me from being present with my partner, and it comes back to taking ownership of it.
So
like, how well can you take on that?
Yeah.
And she'd even say to me quite often, it was around Christmas time, and she was telling me, oh, the great Christmas present she'd got for my sister. And as she did that, it triggered in my mind, like, oh, look at the present I've got. And I started trying to override her and tell her about the present that I got. And I didn't even realize I was doing it. And she said to me, she was like, hey, this is something you actually do quite often. Is like, you get excited about something that you're doing and you don't give me the space, and I see you do it with other people. And I was like, instead of biting at that, like, start learning that, like, if somebody criticizes you, look for the truth in it and how can that improve your life. And
why am I feeling triggered for what you said?
Yeah, so
bro.
it's like, and it's hard to do that, man. And I get commended all the time by people like, you're so wise and you're so much older. And it's like, it just is so much. It's just a way to get better. It's like, it's free information. Right? Yeah. It takes a bit to do that. And
yeah, man.
And I'm so far from perfect, but I feel like I'm getting closer towards a good human every day because I have learnt to take on a bit more criticism and try not to take stuff to heart, try and see the truth in it. So that's a good one. Another good one for anyone listening, if you want to start going, you know what, I do want to try and give a bit more to my mental health. So I have this thing called the 1% Good Club, where it's all about giving 1% of your day to your mental health. And if you break down 1% of a 24-hour day, it's 14 roundabout minutes.
Yeah.
So I was like, surely we can all agree we can give 1% of our day to our mental health. It's the biggest killer of people aged 14 to 44 in the country. It's pretty important, our mental health. Yet most of us, I reckon it'd be like 90% of us aren't doing anything daily for our mental health.
Man, I know what that feels like.
Yeah, and I slip up days too, but I've done this thing for the last 620 days, which I've stayed consistent with. I haven't missed a day, where every morning I post a guided 10-minute meditation to these group chats on Instagram, and I do the meditation myself. And then every single night I write 3 things I'm grateful for. I put it on my Instagram story, and then I send it to these group chats. And then they write their 3 things they're grateful for in the group chat. So that was 615 days ago from recording this, and now I think there's 9 group chats on Instagram because they max out at like 200 people. They've got just over 100 in each, so there's close to 1,000 members now.
Wow, dude.
And over the last 600 days, there's been I think close to like 200,000 gratitudes written in from just complete strangers from all around the world. Everyone tries to do the meditation each morning, and the reason I did it was, I think it's something like you're 800% more likely to maintain a habit if you have an accountability group.
Right.
So I was like, if everyone gets this meditation pops up every morning, if they see everyone else's gratitudes written each day, it'll be a little reminder, what are the 3 things that went well for my day? And the concept is just 1% of your day for your mental health. So if anyone's listening, wants to join, it's completely free. It always will be. All you have to do is send at The Good Human Factory direct message on Instagram saying, I want to join the club. And you join 1,000 like-minded people giving 1% of their day to their mental health and start taking control. Can I give 1% each day? And you get the meditation sent to you. You just click on a YouTube link. Yep. You get my gratitudes. There's a little reminder, and you read 20, 30, 40 other people's gratitudes each day, which is pretty cool.
That's really cool. That's really, really cool. So you said with the 1% Club, right, you start with meditation. That's like part of your, would you call it, morning routine?
Yeah, absolutely.
What else is part of your morning routine? How else do you start your day?
Routine's hard when I'm away.
Yeah.
I'm pretty average with it.
Do you travel a fair bit, yeah?
Yeah, a fair bit. I've been on the road quite a bit. Obviously, I offer my workshops nationwide, online, internationally as well. So, and I don't really want to make it like, I won't go there because the money's not good. It's like, if I can go there and break even, I'll go somewhere. Just because
you can affect the life of one person,
exactly.
Right? Yeah,
so
man.
It's like been really cool. Like I've got a bunch of stuff in like rural Queensland coming up. Sick. Out near Roma.
Yep.
Do a lot of stuff down in Melbourne. I've been to Tasmania last year. Did some stuff in South Oz. Spent a lot of time in Sydney. That's where I grew up and my family lives. And then obviously Gold Coast, Brisbane. A lot of stuff up here too. I forgot where I was going with this.
Morning routine.
I don't know
how hard it is to keep when you're on the road.
So when I'm on the run, it's pretty difficult. But when I'm at home, my morning routine, I try and stay pretty strict to this. I wake up, but they're usually around 6:30 at the moment. I've gotten pretty slack with early mornings because I've just been so on the road.
Darker, right?
I know it's getting dark too. But I try and get up. I have like a weighted blanket. I put it on my nice rug and I lie under it and do a 20-minute breath work every morning.
Yeah.
It's just a good way to sort of get my mind fired up, get some good blood flowing through the body. I then jump straight into a 10-minute meditation, get sort of the mind settled for the day, sort of creates that space when things happen rather than reacting, trying to respond to them.
Yeah.
I'll then walk and get a coffee down at my local coffee shop, get a bit of exercise, a little 30-minute walk, grab a coffee. Come home, try and read for 30 to 40 minutes. Always like learning new things, trying to find new things that I can talk about to my audience to try and share with them knowledge that I've learnt. Yeah. Then that's kind of usually my morning routine. If I can get breath work, meditation, a bit of exercise and reading, that's like my nice little hour and a half that I can lock into that I feel like gives me sort of every chance to have a good day. So they're my little morning
Your little
routines.
things that you do.
Yeah.
I think that, I guess if you look at anyone that's successful in history, they've all got a routine that they sort of follow, right? Something to some degree, whether it be, practicing gratitude, journaling, like that sort of stuff, right? Yeah. You've all got to have that, I guess, routine or that familiarity. English.
It's a hard word.
Familiarity each day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that constant, that same thing that you're doing consistently each day.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's just important. It's like knowing that you can show up, like discipline's freedom. And
Right.
it's a discipline equals freedom. It's a thing that Jocko Willink talks about. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's a Navy SEAL from
He's
over in the States. He has another great book called Extreme Ownership.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea of discipline equals freedom, once you start to really think about it, it's like anyone who's disciplined, you have the freedom to say no to working hard. Whereas anyone who can't get up and go to the gym, anyone who can't get up and, tick these little routines off, then you don't really have any freedom.
You've taken the choice away.
You've taken the choice away. Like,
Yeah,
you don't
man.
have any freedom. You've just gone for the easy option. Like, you're not living free. You're living at the way of your bad habits. So it's like, once I heard that, it's like, yeah, discipline, it does equal freedom. You have the freedom. If you don't want to go to the gym that day, you can say no. But most people aren't willing to build that discipline.
Or do the hard shit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, discipline's a big one.
I think that something you said then that sort of resonated with me, and there's a saying that goes, if you take the easy route, your life will be hard. If you take the hard route, your life will be easy, right?
I like that.
It's one of those things, it's like a polarity. So, if you're willing to make the choice to do the things that you don't necessarily want to do, it means that when you get the chance to do things, it's going to be easier to do them, right?
I came up with a little quote that I thought of a few years ago that I think sums that up well is shortcuts don't lead to the destination you truly desire. So it's like if you cut shortcuts, you might still get to the destination and get the medal, but it's like when you haven't done the work. Exactly.
You're not going to be satisfied.
So shortcuts don't lead to the destination you truly desire. So it's a good one.
Man,
Cooper Chapman quote.
I really love that. You got it. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So I haven't heard of. Maybe I did steal it from someone, but no, I'm pretty sure I remember coming up with that.
It's yours now, bro.
Yeah.
We'll run with it.
But yeah, I think it's a good one to think back to. It's like when you're going to take those shortcuts, it's like, yeah, but are you going to be satisfied when you get to the destination?
Yeah. Well, man, really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. I think you shared a lot of knowledge bombs. I've even learned a lot today, man, especially even like what you said around mindfulness. For me, I always thought of mindfulness as, like you said, obviously being present. But like you said, there's so many different ways that you can be present within your day. It doesn't mean you have to sit down and meditate for 10 or 15 minutes, right? So, man, thanks very much for coming on. Where can people find you if they want to get, I guess, as part of the 1% Club, the Good Human Factory? If they want to book a workshop with you, where would they be able to find you?
Yeah, so obviously social media, just the Good Human Factory. You can find our Instagram. If you want to join the club, just send a DM to the Good Human Factory page saying, I want to join the club. I'll add you into a group, hopefully within 24 hours. I try to. If you want to find me, I'm just at Cooper Chapman, and then workshops, merch, everything to do with the Good Human Factory is on thegoodhumanfactory.com is our website. And then if you want to find the podcast, it's just Good Humans with Cooper Chapman on YouTube, on all the podcast platforms. And yeah, I'm always open to getting back to anyone. So if you want to know anything more about me, just send me a DM on Instagram and I do my best to get back to everyone.
Thank you very much, brother. Appreciate it.
You're a legend. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Beauty. That was fun.